episode of Deep Diving Dell'Olios, our first series where we are going through the events of 9/11, kind of what led up to it and everything. And this week and next week, this is going to be a two-parter, we are going through the events of United 93. So we've already covered the first two planes that hit the Twin Towers along with the Pentagon, and now we are diving into this. So this is going to be pretty heavy, but we're going to tackle it the best that we can.
Possibly can, yeah.
Yes. We, as always, like to start by thanking our Patreon members. If you are over there, hi. We really appreciate your assistance in doing this. We are doing this all on our own. So Mama Ali, we got our back.
Big shout out to Mama Ali.
And if you join our Patreon and subscribe to the Big D, you too can get a shout out at the beginning of each of our episodes. So we're going to be diving into the events before United 93 was hijacked just a little bit. We are not going to be diving completely into the hijackers in this episode. We will be talking about them, their training, how they ended up over here, and what the whole catalyst was for these attacks. That's a completely different episode, but we are going to kind of graze over especially one of the hijackers today. Ziad Jarrah, he's the alleged pilot hijacker of United 93, and there would be some speculation that as to whether he was a victim or a hijacker at one point in time.
Yeah. You were telling me a bit about him.
Yes. So we'll be diving into all of that because he was filed as a missing person in Germany. Like, there was a whole thing. His family does not believe that he was involved in this. We will be talking about that at a later date, especially since he was extremely unlike the other hijackers, but we'll be touching on it in this episode. We're also going to be touching on in the next couple of weeks, the fifth hijacker. This is the only plane out of the four that day to fly out that had only 4 hijackers on board. So where's the fifth hijacker? So we're going to be touching on him as well. We kind of touched on him in our first episode too and what happened to him afterwards. And then we are going to be also touching on the possibility of a suspected fifth plane. That's been up for debate for years now. Now, I will say concerning Ziad Jarrah, there was a video of himself. So there was little to no paper trail connecting him to the other hijackers, okay? And our FBI said something that was so racist after these attacks, I want to say. They were like, yeah, we know who hijacked United 93 based on their Arabic names. So that's how they at first decided who were the terrorists aboard United 93. Because unlike American 11, the flight attendants hadn't gotten in American 11, they said, like, these guys were in this seat, this seat, and this seat. Within 20 minutes, American Airlines knew who the hijackers were. But we didn't have that kind of information when it came to United 93. And so our government was just like, yeah, we guessed by the guys with the Arabic names. So that is where a lot of conspiracy theories come into play as well of who were the hijackers of United 93. We will go through all of these suspicions in a future episode, but our focus is going to be mainly on was the lead up to the attacks and the attacks. There was an article I read on Ziad that reported that he traveled from Karachi to Dubai. I may be mispronouncing that, I'm so sorry.
That's the only way I've ever heard it pronounced.
Karachi.
Yeah.
On January 30th, 2000, okay? He was to change planes in Amsterdam, and then he was going to finally end up in Hamburg, Germany, which is where they were all going to school and everything else, right? So he was returning from a trip to the Tarnak Farms, which I'm also probably mispronouncing, but this was known as an Al Qaeda training camp, all right? This is where, like, Osama bin Laden was, where they were training these guys. This is where he's believed to have filmed a martyrdom/will video with Mohamed Atta. So there was no paper trail connecting Ziad and Mohamed Atta for the longest time, okay? And then suddenly, I think it was in 2003, this video of them is released with them laughing and carrying on, but it's silent, okay? We can't hear anything. So it was just the video that was released. There was no audio with this. For whatever reason, we reported it as a martyrdom/will video. There's nothing I can find that supports that except for the fact that apparently there was paperwork at what you can't find the video, by the way. You cannot find the full video, which is really weird to me. But there,
which is crazy because right now I could probably go online and find the full Saddam Hussein execution video. Anyways.
But it's crazy that you can't find that video. And the only reason they said that was supposedly their martyrdom will video was apparently there was a piece of paper that had the Arabic word for will on it. And so then the media was like, obviously making it very sinister, playing weird music over top of it, and like, you know, these guys laughing about the attacks. We don't know what they were talking about. And yeah, they weren't great men, obviously.
But you're also talking about the same kind of people that like always do the, you know, he was a great husband and a father, and then put the picture in negative and until he wasn't. Dun, dun, dun.
It's very clickbaity.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's, to me, I'm like, unless we know for sure that that was the deal, like,
Times of London is saying the tape shows Atta reading a document marked as a will in Arabic. Atta was at the controls of the first plane to hit the World Trade Center. The Sunday Times of London is planning to release the entire video on Sunday.
The Faces of Terror, a video showing 9/11 ringleader Mohamed Atta and hijacker Ziad Jarrah surfaces 6 years after it was made. It shows the terrorists laughing and joking before reading their last will and testament. A British newspaper posted the tape on the web.
A chilling look at two of the 9/11 hijackers, more than 1 year before the attacks. Ringleader Mohamed Atta laughing and joking with another hijacker, Ziad Jarrah. Jarrah, who piloted United Airlines Flight 93, which crashed into a Pennsylvania field. The video is dated January 18th, 2000. It's silent, and lip readers reportedly haven't yet been able to figure out exactly what they're saying.
I don't know. I just felt like it was...
And without the audio, it's quite legitimately impossible to know. Because a lot of those, just speaking from experience, learning Hebrew, and maybe, you know, I'm not that well versed in Hebrew. It is really hard to tell just by reading someone's lips what they're saying with those older languages. They're very guttural. Right? They're very down here. So unlike English or French or Spanish and stuff like that, where your lips and tongue are moving a lot, it's a very like, you know.
Mm-hmm. So he's traveling back from these farms, right? And while he's doing that in the Dubai airport, he's pulled over by UAE, so the United Arab Emirates security officials, for questioning. Now, officials would later tell CNN in 2002 that this interrogation was on behalf of the CIA. Yes, the CIA would immediately deny this.
Our favorite friends.
So reportedly he was interrogated for 4 hours. So this is a quote from one of the articles I found, but he was detained and questioned at length. And they still insist it was because the CIA gave them a tip off of like, hey, he's coming back from these training farms. So this is a quote.
Which, okay. let me get on something real quick. So as you guys know, if you've watched the other videos, I'm more of the conspiracy theory guy. She is the real hard facts.
The
basics,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I have not looked into the basic facts. I like to be surprised on these videos, and whenever the CIA is mentioned, I wish I could say I was surprised. They're not. Like it's the CIA, the same people that basically coined the term conspiracy theorist whenever anybody starts talking about something like this. Those would be the kind of guys, because aside from him, his traveling and stuff like that, which he wasn't taking planes or trains to get to these training camps, because they're out in the middle of nowhere. You know, like, take for example, the training that I went to in California. It's in Death Valley. We took buses to get there. Yes, we flew into the state of California, but it's all the way down in Death Valley. We had to drive there ourselves. No tracking, no GPS. We're not buying tickets, nothing like that. Of course, we're with a federal organization, so there's a paperwork trail. But these guys are a guerrilla warfare unit, so nothing is going to be tracked. So I don't know if Dubai, no offense to Dubai, I don't know if they would be like,
Wait a minute.
Yeah, we know these people have gone there.
But the CIA would.
Oh, the CIA would, yeah. We've had spy satellites for God knows how long.
So this is a quote from one of the articles I found. It said, when officials opened his bag, Ziad's bag, they found jihadist videotapes and religious tracts. A page of the Quran was stuck into his passport. He made no secret of having been in Afghanistan.
A page of the Quran.
Uh-huh.
Now, in the comments, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure that is sacrilegious.
That's what I'm wondering too.
To take a page. Hang on.
Because if you rip it from the Bible, that's sacrilegious.
It's not as sacrilegious. When you talk about different religions, there's a bunch of different like pomp and circumstance that go with their holy books.
And I will say, when we get into Ziad more, he was not like any of the other hijackers. The other hijackers, for the most part, weren't really close with their family. didn't have any friends. They were very strict religious-wise. Ziad was not like that. Ziad was engaged at one point in time. Like, he had a lot going for him. He was not religious at all. He was very school-based. I don't understand why he was involved in this.
Okay.
When you compare him to the others.
Okay, Seattle Times. I'm sorry. The Seattle Times posted a thing. Why burning a Quran offends Muslims? It's like,
of course.
Burning a Bible offends Christians. Burning the Torah offends Jews. Like, what are you talking about? But anyways, so all I can find about it is that there's a respectful, if your Quran has been mortally wounded in some way, there's a respectful way to burn it, and that is laid out in other texts. However, there's a bunch of posts from like Reddit, Quora, and stuff like that, asking what to do if even a page is folded in it.
Oh, really?
So yeah, ripping a page out would not, unless they have a different interpretation of Islam. That's like, I feel like that's not a cool thing to do. I feel like you wouldn't want to do that right before you're about to initiate a jihad.
Yeah.
But what do I know?
So he made no secret of having been in Afghanistan, and he did not mention that he had been at a training camp. When asked where he was going now, he replied matter-of-factly that he would soon be traveling to the United States for pilot training. The Dubaians then called the CIA station at the U.S. Embassy. The Lebanese official, because Ziad was he was from Lebanon, just by the way.
Oh. Okay, that's different. Okay.
Yep. The Lebanese official told me and recounted the conversation to one of the counterparts there. He didn't seem interested, the official went on, and he told the Dubaians to let Ziad go. When I mentioned the Dubai airport incident to a relative of Ziad's, he exploded. They arrest him at Dubai airport at the request of the CIA. He had just come out of Pakistan. He trained in Afghanistan. He told the Dubaians that he was going to the United States, and the Americans let him go. And then, within months, they give him a multiple entry visa to the States. Why?
Well, I mean, and this is what's so confusing, is because we broke international law. The United States did. We went into Pakistan when we killed Osama bin Laden.
Do you think he's dead? Since you put Really, you don't.
So I think that he was probably captured. We
haven't touched on this yet at all. We will at one point in time.
What's crazy is that he had a picture and an album of Avril Lavigne on his computer. The one where she's got her arm around Justin Bieber. That was on his computer. And then also the whole like Skater Boy album was on his computer as well as all of Naruto was on there as well. So he was a weeb just like me.
Well, he also had like 15,000 children too.
I mean, yeah.
As it might have been his kids.
No, it was him.
No, I'm certain.
Yep, 100%. It is Mr. Laden, Mr. Bin Laden. And regardless of all of that, it just kind of strikes me as either a little bit suspicious, not of Pakistan itself, but just a little bit suspicious of America's ties to Pakistan, because what we did when we killed Bin Laden was an open violation, because Bin Laden was on Pakistani soil.
So we shouldn't have even gone in there.
We did not contact the Palestinian government or oh my gosh, the government of Pakistan. I can't speak today. The government of Pakistan's we didn't talk to anybody before we just went in there and killed several of their citizens, including Osama bin Laden.
And then we called the Saudi Arabian government on the seas to ask them what to do with his body. Anyways.
Yeah, sorry, total side note.
So Ziad would then return to his partner in Germany. Now, I say partner because I can't figure it out what she was to him yet. I am currently reading a book about them.
I thought we were doing a callback to the first episode.
Oh.
The gay love story of a century.
No. Also, disclaimer here, anytime we laugh, it is not about the attacks at all. It's about us and our jackassery, or like sometimes, I mean, This is weird.
Yeah, it's
like there's
the entire...
a lot in this that doesn't make sense.
It's the insanity of it. It's the lies we've been told, and it's the utter
propaganda.
It's the propaganda and the lies that we've been sold and told, and it's also, goodness sake, it's either the complete incompetence of our government, which is also something funny to laugh at any point in history. Always laughing at your government is always a great thing to do. But
we need to correct it too. Like that's what I don't understand is how come we haven't taken any how come our government has gotten out scot-free when we have done horrific things over in Iraq and Afghanistan?
And we've sent so many of our sons to go and die there.
For what?
Because
I'm getting off on.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
I'm so sorry.
Let's narrow it back down. Sorry.
Because this was an extremist group. It wasn't a country that did this. Anyways, back to here. Let's zoom back in. So
we're back.
Ziad, he returns to Germany. I say this is his partner because I can't figure out right now. I'm currently reading a book about all of the hijackers. I'm just starting to get into his backstory, I guess you could say, before the attacks were committed. But he had a very serious partner, a girlfriend. I can't tell whether they were married or not before the attacks happened. That's kind of like, it depends on where it's being reported from of who she was, whether she was his fiance, his girlfriend. They were very serious though. They dated for years. And a big part of contempt in their relationship was he did talk to her about his jihadist beliefs. Oh, yeah. So that ended up being a huge fight at one point. So he returns at this point in time. We're getting closer to the attacks in January of 2000. He returns to Germany and he tells her he's left his dreams of jihad behind, okay? He now wants to fulfill his dream of becoming a pilot. He says he's dreamt of this ever since he was a kid. He plans to go to flight school in Florida, and he tells her once he has his license, he would settle down and live wherever she wanted. He'd also cleanly shaven himself, gotten himself, which is different from the video that I'll put a clip of it up.
Full on beard, right?
Yeah, and this is apparently all part of Al Qaeda, of them blending in. They do that to look like they're not these religious, I can't even think of the word right now, but that look like they're not a part of it, right?
Yeah.
And in June, he would enter the United States. Another person would be trying to come into the United States in the summer of 2001 on August 4th. So Saudi-born man named Mohamed al Qahtani. We've talked about him a little bit in the first episode.
Very small bit, yeah.
Mm-hmm. He arrived at MCO, the Orlando International Airport, carrying $2,800 in cash. Now, his immigration officer that day was Jose Melendez Perez. According to Jose, al Qahtani was extremely irritable while he questioned him about his intentions in the United States. Al Qahtani could also give no real reason for his travel into the United States, and he had no return flight or hotel reservation. Big red flags.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
that's a real red flag. But no return flight, nowhere to stay, no hotel reservation.
Yeah. So Jose asked him, he's like, hey, when you leave the United States, like, what's your plan after? And I guess al Qahtani got so mad at him, he started pointing in his face and yelling at him that, like, it was none of his business. So
I get it, but that's not the place to fight that.
Well, I will say, very interesting. Jose pushed back on this guy a lot, and his coworkers actually came up to him and said, hey, like, the guy's Saudi Arabian. We don't want you to get in trouble for denying him into the country. Yeah.
In trouble for what? He's following protocols.
No, the money that's coming in, that's what they were like, we don't want you to get in trouble for denying someone. And it's like, no, he had every right to deny this person, regardless of where this guy came from. He has no return flight home. Yeah, you can't do that when you travel across.
And when it comes to Saudi Arabians traveling into the country, here's a crazy fun fact I learned. A lot of the younger guys go on kind of like what the Amish do, where it's like
a pilgrimage over.
Yeah, just like go and hang out and like sow their wild oats, as it were. And they ship their Lamborghinis over here.
Holy Hannah. But see, that's why this is the United States. This is the deal with the devil we've made in all of this. The money that is coming over, this is the reason why. Jose felt immediately, he said this during the 9/11 commission. You can see the clip. Maybe I'll be able to play it for you guys.
Pointing his finger at my face stated that he did not know where he was going when he departed the United States. What first came to mind at this point was the subject was a hitman. A hitman doesn't know where he's going because if he's caught, that way he doesn't have anything or any information to bargain with. My wife said that I was watching too much movies.
Yikes.
So, Jose had a feeling by the way this man carried himself as well and the way he answered questions that he had had some sort of military training at one point in his life. You can tell that about people.
Like that's the craziest part is that where I work in like hospitality and stuff. People will come in and hang out, and I'm immediately able to tell. If they were from the United States military service, I am able to figure out what branch of military service they were.
Based on how they carry themselves.
Just based on how they walk.
Now, on a technicality, Jose would be able to refuse entrance, yes, to Al Qahtani, okay? He was put on a flight back to Dubai that very day. Now, on his way through the gate, this man they'd been using a translator this entire time. He had claimed he could not speak English. On his way through the gate, he said, "I'll be back," and waved.
Huh.
Now, before he was told to get out, Jose and him were arguing about whether he had somewhere to stay. And he let it slip that someone was waiting for him upstairs at the MCO airport, okay? So Jose says, "Who's waiting for you? You know, like, where are you staying? Like, what's the plan?" They ask you that. I mean, we go through the Canadian-American border all the time.
Yeah.
I've been constantly asked that, and I'm dual citizen. I shouldn't be asked that.
It's an incredibly common question.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you are coming into the country either like super commonly or you aren't coming in super commonly, and if this is your first time, not only do they need to know that you are not going to be an issue for their tax system later on, but they also need to know that you are going to be safe. Because as of right then, when they bring you into custody and they're actually talking to you, you are their responsibility now.
Well, yeah, and that's what he said. He's like, "You're going to have some trouble, if you don't have a place to stay or anything." And he said, "No, I have someone here picking me up." And then he questioned him on who's picking you up. And the guy was like, "Oh, like, I didn't mean that. Like, there's nobody here." Come to find out, during the 9/11 Commission report, there was credit card receipts that Mohamed Atta was in the Orlando airport that day making calls from a payphone to the Middle East, to numbers from the Middle East, supposedly to check up on Al Qahtani's entrance into the U.S. Yeah.
Jose.
Bam.
Dude, you tried. And you did the most out of any branch of our government did to stop this. Seriously.
So after 9/11, Jose attempted to call the FBI about his interaction with Al Qahtani because he was like, bet that guy had something to do with this, right? But besides the INS, so besides immigration, neither the FBI, the CIA, or any other fraction of our government contacted Jose about this event until the 9/11 Commission report came around and wanted to ask him questions about his interaction with Al Qahtani.
There's the whole saying that I didn't learn in the military, but I heard a lot. And it's a couple P's. Piss poor planning prevents or procures piss poor results, right? He had really piss poor planning. And then when you talk about, not only in this episode did we talk about Atta, he was at the airport at the same day we could have pulled that stuff up. Like, even back then, the same day we could have pulled that stuff up. And these were the same people that, while they were training, their flight training, their flight trainers and everyone else was calling the FBI and Homeland Security, or not Homeland Security, but the thing before that, was calling that.
And reporting these men, because it's weird.
This is all, like, within, like, weeks of each other. Literally within weeks of each other.
And if you don't, I totally skipped over. In our first episode, we went through who Mohamed Atta was, but he's the ringleader of all of this over in the United States section of this, and he was the pilot of American 11. He was the first plane that hit the towers.
They're not being quiet about it. No. They're not being secretive about it.
And my favorite is our government said, like, immediately after, this is such a side note, but we're going to go through it later, but they said immediately after, like, these guys were super quiet, like, we had no idea, and the commission report called them out and was like, dudes, no, there was red flags all over the place, but our issue was we weren't all talking to each other, and no one knows what the fuck the CIA was doing.
Yeah.
No one knows. We, like, still to this day, like, why did they know who two of the terrorists were? Ziad would end up on a CIA watch list, too. Why?
Like, watch list. Look, okay, if you're going to make something that's called a watch list, right? Watch the people that are on it. I don't know what to tell you. It's a watch list for a reason. Now, we're talking about the CIA here, who all glow in the dark. Every single one of them is evil. You're talking about the CIA. This is an organization that destabilized South America to such a point that even today, Venezuela is struggling to feed themselves. So this is the same thing. And they did that only a decade prior to 9/11. So you really want to look at me and tell me that the government wouldn't do that to us when they did it to so many citizens of not our country, but other countries. All of this, they were not quiet about it. They were so loud about it. And it was like...
It's like we didn't care.
We didn't. I get it. I 100% get it. If I am talking to a fellow American, I will talk to them about all the flaws that we have in our country. And we have a lot of flaws. Our ignorance is one of them.
Oh, bananas.
However, if I am talking to a non-American who's hating on America...
I saw your...
Not only did we get to the moon, we drew the stars and stripes on the back of it.
Did we get to the moon?
If you're American, we didn't. If you're French, we did.
Anyways. The commission report, just to give a little bit more credence to what you were saying about Jose being, like, he did the most out of the government and is trying to stop this. It is believed by the commission report that Jose stopping al Qahtani from entering the country stopped him from being the fifth hijacker on United 93 and thus probably allowed the passengers aboard United 93 to successfully get the plane away from the target.
Oh, yeah, because at the beginning you said there were only 4.
There's only 4 hijackers. That was the 5th.
Jose!
Yeah, it is believed that al Qahtani was the 5th. But we talked about this in the first episode. Al Qahtani, he was eventually captured by us. He was brought to Guantanamo Bay, and he was tortured into insanity. We were supposed to be able to use his witness testimony against Zacharias. I can never pronounce his last name, but the one person that was really criminally charged during this whole for 9/11. And it was unusable. And just last year, actually, President Biden released al Qahtani back to his home because he is so sick.
It's not like he's gonna have a life. Like, this is the other thing. I mean, like, this man's been pushed to such an extent. I'm not excusing any of his actions or anything that he might have done.
He might have been one of the 5th hijackers. However,
it's not right.
We're supposed to treat humankind with dignity. That we are supposed to have a charge, which the people in Guantanamo Bay, majority of them are, I don't think any of them are charged with anything. We call them detainees and not prisoners so that we can get around the Geneva Convention and keep these men, where a lot of them, if you look into it, are actually farmers and not terrorists at all. And we have kidnapped them from their home, and we have tortured them to the brink of insanity, if not fully to insanity, to the point that this man had to be returned home.
Like, that is not right.
Since 9/11, we use that as an excuse for Homeland Security to just strip rights away from people. And when you start stripping rights away from people, it does not end with the people that we believe are responsible for this. That's a whole other tangent. Now, to get back to this, little heads up before we go any further. There is a common misconception that the target of United 93 was 100% the U.S. Capitol building. We do not know this. It is believed it was the U.S. Capitol building because that was supposedly, according to Al Qaeda, they believe that as our symbol of financial ties with Israel. However, I know it's a weird thing.
Not like the IRS or the Department of Treasury or anything like that? Okay.
U.S. Capitol building.
All right, cool. Yeah, continue.
I don't get it. However, we don't know. That some believe it might have been the White House as well. So I feel
like that would have been a much better target.
Well,
rather than the Capitol building.
I don't understand why the Pentagon was chosen. I will never get that. I will never grasp the Pentagon.
I can kind of understand when it comes to like military speak, but at the same time, even back then we knew it was like 55 stories deep into the center of the earth and they commune with demons or something down there. Like, everybody knows that. So it's like, why would you attack just the outer shell of it?
On September 7th, all 4 Flight 93 hijackers flew from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where they'd been training, to Newark aboard Spirit Airlines, which I just thought was interesting.
If you've never flown Spirit, Don't.
But I will say too, this speaks so this does kind of speak against the FBI did publicly claim the reason they figured out who the hijackers were originally on United 93 was their Arabic names, right? If all of these men, and from what I could find, they all flew on this one airline, it would speak to Ziad obviously being a part.
Yeah.
You know?
But all on one airline.
I think it was all on one flight. That I had a really hard time finding that. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But I Googled the shit out of that, and all I could find was they flew on Spirit Airlines. And every sentence I saw made it sound like they were all on one flight.
OPSEC is just not a thing for these people.
What is OPSEC?
Operational security.
Well, yeah, because if the plane goes down, or if anything happens,
like on God, it's Spirit Airlines, right? So you are talking about like picture an Uber coming to pick you up. If you haven't ridden with Spirit, let me paint you a picture. Picture an Uber coming to pick you and your 8 friends up, and it is a 2.0 liter Mustang from '92. And it's a dude inside who reeks of weed, and there's a bunch of empty liquor bottles in his front seat. And you and all of your 8 friends have to get inside of it and just pray for the best. And somehow he gets you to your destination. Spirit Airlines, do not sue me, okay? You guys are scary to fly with. I'm just going to say that. But you are really cheap, so I don't know. But at the same time, all on one flight. And not only all on one flight, names on tickets of all one single airline.
They were loud. Like, and we were just deaf, I guess.
And these are the same people that people have been calling about. They don't want to know how to take off or land the plane. They just want to know how to steer it when it's in the air.
Hello?
What are you talking about? Landing the plane is of the utmost importance. Like, even if you're only going to be a co-pilot, you have to know how to land the plane, because what happens if your pilot is like a 69-year-old guy who is going to have a heart attack? You need to know how to land the plane. That is 100% a homeland security situation where you're like, okay, these people, there is something seriously wrong with these people. And then Jose, he's like, hey, there's something seriously wrong with this. We come to find out with the credit cards and everything like that.
There's something seriously wrong?
He is in that airport. The main guy behind the whole thing is inside that airport. And nobody is taking it one lick seriously. One lick. And this is mimicked in our modern day. With school shooters and stuff like that. We know their names. We know they are on watch lists and everything like that. And it still somehow happens. Okay,
well, it's the same thing as the woman that cries domestic abuse constantly, and you call the police and they're like, yeah, make a record of it, but until he kills you, we can't really do anything.
You guys choose to use the phrase innocent till proven guilty in the court of law so loosely sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
So absolutely loosely. No one is being quiet about this. Why? Okay, yes, sorry.
Anyways, September 7th, they all fly, same flight, right? Okay, 2 days before September 11th, just a little after midnight on September 9th, Ziad Jarrah would be pulled over for driving 90 in a 65 mile per hour zone.
Which state?
Maryland, Interstate 95.
That's I think it's a misdemeanor in that state.
It is.
Yeah.
He should have been arrested. Like, I'm telling you. He was only issued a $270 ticket and told to appear in court the next day, which he did not make that court appearance. You can find the video online of him being pulled over. You don't see him. You don't hear what he says. You can hear what the officer says to him, though. There was no warrant out for his arrest at the time of 9/11. According to the police officer, there was nothing suspicious, so he was told he was free to go. Some have speculated Ziad wanted to be arrested.
Dang.
In Maryland, like you said, reckless driving laws are super loose there. So he should have been pulled over, because you could be going 5 over and they can arrest you.
Which is why, total side note, the Cannonball Run doesn't go through Virginia and it does not go through Maryland.
What does that mean?
It's a race across the United States from basically tip to tip. On either side, so far northeast and then far southwest.
I've never heard of this.
So they don't go through those two
illegal?
states.
This has got to be illegal.
A lot of them are. But it's from tip to tip, but they do not go through Maryland and they don't go through Virginia because the speeding laws are so harsh there. Yeah. If you get caught, like she said, doing 5 over, it's reckless driving. Yeah. So
so the cop obviously had no idea that Ziad was already on a CIA watch list. So that's also a breakdown in our communications, because that should have come up. That should come up on your record.
And that still doesn't pop up. That still does not pop up, because clearly, once again, going back to like mass shooters and stuff like that, they are on an FBI or a CIA watch list, and they are still able to purchase firearms, which, if you didn't know, take a background check in the United States to actually be able to purchase. That should come up on a background check.
It should. Oh, yeah.
What are you talking about?
You.
It should 100% disqualify you.
Ziad would become known as the quote-unquote reluctant terrorist of the 19. He was a member that the commission once reported to have said that he was the last best opportunity the United States intelligence had to avert 9/11 because he was the most susceptible to turning. Reportedly, he had already attempted to walk away from this mission at least twice before 9/11. So it is very possible he was trying to get arrested that day. We'll go through it in his episode, but according to an article I read, he tried to flee once to Germany to go back with his partner, and when he arrived at the airport, one of the hijackers was waiting for him there.
I'm surprised they didn't kill him.
I am too. And his relationship with Mohamed Atta was not a happy one. In fact, Al Qaeda called it, quote unquote, the unhappy marriage. And he was told, and one of the times he tried to flee, that it would be a very expensive divorce if he tried to leave, whatever that means, if he tried to leave.
Whoa.
And I feel like to us over here, we don't understand the power of Al Qaeda, because yes, it is a fanatical group and everything else, but what does that mean?
You talk about Al Qaeda like it's a bunch of like goat farmers with 22 single action revolvers or something like that. Mm-hmm. These are people that have not only faced off against the United States, they have faced off with literally every single world superpower that has ever existed in the entire history of mankind, and somehow they are still there.
Oh yeah.
You are talking about going against a military force with smart weapons that cost more than our entire budget for education inside the United States. And we left.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't defeat them.
Whether he was trying to get arrested or not, this does not negate his culpability in this crime. Do you know what I mean? But I just want to put that in because I think it can sound too like I'm excusing things, or I'm like, oh, this poor guy, he got mixed up and he got too far. And that's not what I'm saying.
If it's one thing that you can guarantee on this podcast, we will give no excuses to anybody, including ourselves.
So on September 10th, Todd Beamer returned home with his wife from a 5-day trip to Italy his company had gifted him for his work ethic. At the time, the couple had 2 boys and a third on the way. The very next day, Todd was scheduled for a quick work trip from San Francisco from Newark. He was to fly home that afternoon, so he wasn't even supposed to be gone.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep. And again, it's that transcontinental flight that we've talked about before, where going across the country, the terrorist hopes were you have enough jet fuel to really burn through whatever they hit. At Newark Airport, the morning of September 11th, 2001, 2 of the terrorists checked bags and 2 did not. So Haznawi was selected just like Mohamed Atta had been for the CAPS system. So that computerized security system for them to scan his luggage for explosives. Now, Atta's luggage never made it on the plane. That's how we have the letter and a few other things from Atta. This guy's luggage did. So it was boarded on. So I don't know if they just didn't get to Atta's or what the deal was, right? Because there were the terrorists didn't bring any explosives on the plane.
Oh, it's probably honestly, it was like an airport. Like, think about like how airports are. If you've ever traveled via air, your luggage has inevitably been lost.
Now, something we didn't mention in the first 2 episodes, because those 2 flights left from Boston Logan, right? So remember how in the first episode, so we had video footage of Mohamed Atta going through Portland, because they did that weird trip to Portland and then traveled to Boston. Yeah. We don't have anything from Boston, because at the time, Boston Logan's airport did not have closed circuit security. Yeah, over their cameras. This is what I'm saying. And it's not just them. Newark didn't have it either. That makes no sense. And that's why conspiracy theorists are like, were they even on the planes? Because there's no footage to show these men landed on those planes. The people that did the security checkpoint for these men, as they went through, they said that there was nothing suspicious about them that morning. They were all interviewed later, obviously, by the FBI, said there was nothing off about them, but we don't have any video footage to say, like, you know, in Dulles, they did the extra security measure where they wanted them and everything. We have that footage. We can say those men went through and were wanted and all of that. But yeah. The 4 men boarded the plane between 7:39 and 7:48. All 4 had seats in the first class cabin. By 8 a.m., all 19 hijackers had surpassed all the security layers that America's civil aviation system had in place to prevent a hijacking. So they have all made it through at this point. Now, the original plan for all the men that had hijacked the aircraft was to hit their targets within 10 minutes of each other. Just bam, bam, bam. But United 93 would be delayed by 41 minutes that morning at Newark Airport. And it's a mess, Marcus. It's a mess. So they took off just minutes before American Airlines 11 hit the first tower. At 8:46 is when they hit, but 8:42 was when United 93 took off. So they just, like, because you could see it from the airport. You could see the Manhattan skyline from that airport. It had been a really busy morning, too, that morning at Newark Airport. About a dozen jets were lined up on the tarmac by 8:46 when the first plane hit the towers. Several pilots would call air traffic control to ask to turn back to the gates because their passengers were so upset by what they had seen when the second plane hit the tower.
And Newark Tower 1133. Yes, sir. Yeah, we're going to have to go back to the gate. We have people on board that saw this thing, and they're hysterical. So if you can try to keep it open for us, we're going to have to go back to the gate.
They said something terrible has just happened over New York City. It appears an aircraft has struck a building. It looks like we may not be going anywhere for a while. But that message missed. United 93 was already gone from the airport. So when they took off that morning, they were carrying a lighter load than usual. They had 7 crew members, 33 passengers, and the only 4 hijackers. Yes.
Only 33 passengers?
Mm-hmm.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
But this delay in Newark would give the passengers aboard United 93 something the other hijacked aircraft did not have: time to plan their counterattacks. So what we know about what happened on United 93 is due to the heroism of those on board who made over 37 phone calls between from when it was hijacked at 9:28 in the morning until it crashed at 10:03. 35 of those calls were made from airphones, which I just want to put out there. I did get a comment on one of my videos that said there was no way to possibly make phone calls back then from planes. There was a thing called an airphone.
Who commented that?
Instagram, man. You took your credit card, you swiped through, it called down to earth. It's a thing. We'll put up a photo of it.
I think we should bring those back, honestly.
I love them.
I really liked the idea, but yeah.
Anyways, I always wanted to use one. Mom wouldn't let me. She's like, it's rude. We're on a plane.
It's rude. It's expensive.
Yeah, it's expensive. Yeah. At the end of the flight, they were at an altitude where cell phone calls could be made out. So at least 2 of those were made from cell phones.
Wow.
I know.
So they were there for a while then at that altitude. Okay.
Yeah. So these calls were made to the authorities, United Airlines, and to family members and loved ones. And unlike the 2 planes that hit the tower and the one that went to the Pentagon, the black box of United 93 survived completely. So I know it was damaged, the one that went through the Pentagon, but this one survived and is intact. Now, the model black box aboard United 93 had a recording limit of 30 minutes, which I think is the same for the one for American 77, and it would just rewrite itself. So we only have the final 30 minutes of United 93. Now, FAA regulations state that it's a federal crime to publish that black box recording. So we've never heard the recording. However, there is a redacted transcript from United 93. Now, that also fuels conspiracy theorists, because why can't we hear it? We don't have it in full. I will say to myself, mind you, I don't have family members aboard that plane. I don't know how I would feel if I did. But I do think a black box recording, that should be made fully public, transcription-wise, and I think recording-wise as well.
Because I'm going to say something, and this is probably the military coming out of me. I want to know what was going on the greatest attack on American soil since Pearl Harbor. I want to know what was going on. Because we know what was going on with Pearl Harbor. We know everything that happened with Pearl Harbor.
I think it does us a disservice when we have secret, like when our government's able to keep things from us.
Yes.
I think, like, that's I just think with something like this, especially with how huge it was and how many conspiracy theories there are out there, I think it would put a lot of things to rest if we had the fuller picture of things.
Yes, if you the best tool to destroy conspiracies and a bunch of different negative things coming out about your country is just to accept if you were in the right or the wrong and publish things.
So on September 11th, Ed Ballinger, a Chicago-based dispatcher, was responsible for a total of 16 flights that day, 2 of which had been hijacked. United 175 and United 93. Now, after learning the fate of United 175, which was the second plane to hit the towers, at 9:20, he began to send out an urgent message to those that were still in the air through a system called ACARS, which stood for Aircraft Communication and Response System. It would type out, beware any cockpit intrusion. 2 aircraft in New York hit Trade Center builds.
That's, first off, the first section of that message, beware any cockpit intrusion.
That's unprecedented.
I would hope you would beware if somebody was knocking on the door in a cockpit in a plane.
Not back then, though,
I suppose, but
not back then.
That's asinine to me.
I remember as a kid being able to go and sit in the cockpit.
And we got our wings. Remember?
Oh, yeah, the little Delta wings.
Yeah.
So at 9:24, Captain Jason Dahl, who was the captain aboard United 93, received this message from Ed. And he seemed confused by it, so he responded, Ed, confirm latest message, please, Jason. Ed was already overwhelmed with having to send out this message to everyone that he could, because I'm pretty sure he had to do it single to each one, right? And he didn't get back to him. I don't even know if he saw it. And at 9:28, so just like 4 minutes later, not even, is when air traffic controllers heard a struggle inside the cockpit of United 93. As it dove, now I don't know who made the error, but it either dove 700 or 7,000 feet. I read different accounts everywhere, but it dove.
That is a vast difference.
There's a huge difference.
That is an insane difference.
So the commission says 700 feet, so I'd be more lenient to go with what the commission says. But I read articles that said 7,000. So I'm unsure, so I put them both.
Whatever they want, just so we can talk about
Yeah, then if Air Canada continues this climb, can you take them climbing to 35 or 39?
American 1060 with it for
Doesn't look like it.
Doesn't look like it.
All right,
good.
Thanks.
Somebody call Cleveland.
American 1060 with you. We're 370. We're slowing due to the delays possible. We're going eastbound.
That's American 1060.
Lorraine Patterson to 99. Center American 1060.
Yeah. You got United 93? United 93. Yeah, descended.
Lorraine Patterson to 99.
What's that? I just saying, it looked like he descended
I
there.
don't think so. United 93, verify 350.
So after this happens, air traffic control is trying to raise United 93. They're like, what's going on? They've already seen, they're aware of the other 2 hijacking. So we are now in the know. They're like, hey, what's going on? At 9:32, just like ATA, is when an announcement's made.
I got some things to down. Keep remaining sitting. We have a bomb aboard.
So they announced that they had a bomb on board. Again, we talked about this in the other episodes. That a lot of them either supposedly witnessed a bomb. I think it was Amy Sweeney in the first episode that said she saw the bomb on the hijackers. These are believed to be faked because there was no evidence of explosives found supposedly on the planes, which also does lead to conspiracy theorists wondering about a controlled demolition as well, which we will talk about when we talk about the towers. I believe this is just like ATA, whereas the odd radios and he only gets air traffic control, he's not talking to the cabin. However, the cabin is very much aware that they have been hijacked.
Because they killed the pilots, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's questions as to whether the pilots were killed or not. There was the trial for Zacharias, right? And one of the wives of one of the captains, and I'm not sure which one, but I had read an article where she thought she could hear him moaning in the background. So we're not sure if they were just incapacitated, but it is believed they were murdered. They believe that was Ziad Jarrah telling them, remain seated, all of that, the normal, what we've come to know as the normal response from these guys. For whatever reason, they're letting them know they've been hijacked and everything else. Now, unlike the rest of the hijackings, this one was known to FAA within minutes by 9:34 because of this. And at this point in time, United 93 climbed to 40,700 feet. So air traffic controllers are moving every plane as possible out of their way. Okay, and this is the controller that heard Ziad's message to what he believed was the cabin. He asked him to repeat it, not because he didn't understand what he said. He was just trying to get additional time and to call his supervisor over so it could go up the chain of command.
Keep remaining steady. We have a overboard. So it's
Calling Cleveland Center, you're unreadable. Say again slowly.
Did you hear the transmission where the airplane that said he had a bomb on board?
Say again. Is that United 93? Victor 956. Go ahead.
Yeah, that transmission he said was unreasonable. It sounded like someone said they have a bomb on board.
That's what we thought. We just we didn't get it clear. Is that United 93 calling?
They continually tried to raise and radio United 93, but there was no response until 9:39 when another accidental transmission comes through. Now remember, on the ground, there's still utter confusion. NORAD had heard nothing about American 77, the plane that hit the Pentagon, that was missing for over 30 minutes in airspace. So remember, they have no concept that even went on. They know what's going on in New York, the end, because of what hit the towers. Okay, and remember, they only learned about American 11 5 minutes before.
Yeah.
We went through that in the first episode. And at 9:21, just before United 93 was hijacked, there was another impression that American 11 was still airborne.
Yes.
The military had radioed about that he was the third hijacker, and he's still in the air, and we've got to find him. They think he's heading over Washington. They're not sure.
Okay, American Airlines is still airborne. 11, the first guy, he's heading towards Washington. Okay, I think we need to scramble Langley right now, and I'm gonna take the fighters from Otis and try to chase this guy down if I can find him. Yeah. You sure? Okay. He's heading towards Langley, or I should say Washington. American 11, the original guy, he's still airborne.
And we still don't know, the commission does not know where that information came from, right? Now, in all of this confusion at 9:24, Langley was radioed by NEODS, which is the Northeast Air Defense Center, to get fighters over Washington area. Those fighters were airborne by 9:30. At 9:36, FAA's Boston Center calls NEADS to relay the discovery of an unidentified aircraft heading towards Washington. That's American 77. They say it's 6 miles east of the White House. Now, just to clarify, in our last episode, we talked about how American Airlines 77 looked like it was headed to Washington.
Yes.
And I was re-listening to Garrett Graff's podcast, Long Shadow, this week in preparation for this episode. And he said, the air traffic controllers that were interviewed, they said they were counting down the miles. They thought this plane is going to hit the White House, right?
Yeah.
And then last minute, it turns and heads towards the Pentagon, hits the Pentagon. We don't know why that happened.
Interesting.
But during this time, they call, they're like, hey, get fighters over there. Okay. So they attempt to scramble them over towards Washington, but surprise, the Langley fighters were not headed north towards Baltimore. They were headed east towards the ocean because of those, remember the war games we were talking about earlier?
Yes.
The military had been preparing, they were training for us going to war with Russia, which is not funny, haha, but kind of funny compared to where we are today because, hello. But that was what they were doing. So according to those that were in the F-16s, they didn't know what they were looking for when they were up in the air. They weren't looking for a commercial airliner. They were looking for Russians. They had no clue. They're headed east towards the ocean, but after the Pentagon was struck, they were informed of another possible hijacking, another transcontinental flight, Delta 1989. not United 93.
Yes, sir. We're told Delta is a hijack and may have a bomb, so we don't know. It's the information coming from the pilot has been really unreliable and shaky. Okay. And approach, this is Carlton. I'm working on him. He is going direct to the airport now. He requested it. Okay.
Delta 1989 was not one of the hijacked aircraft, but it was also a transcontinental flight. They just assumed.
I figure all transcontinental airline or flights in the air at that point would be a threat, which is terrifying to think about.
Here's the crazy thing. Even if those fighters had found United 93, there had been no order given from the White House yet on what to do with them. And the only two people that could have ordered the shoot down of a commercial airliner that day was President George W. Bush or Donald Rumsfeld. That's it. The end. Secretary of Defense. The end. And we're going to get to the point of that's not who gave the shoot down order. Because a shoot down order does come out. And it comes out way too late.
And good luck getting a hold of any single one of those people.
Well, seriously.
Either of those people. Like, seriously, good luck. And you're dealing with minutes. You have minutes to make a decision.
Seriously.
So, anyways, yeah.
No. So, this order wouldn't come until about 10:30, okay? And it was from a whole other source we're going to talk about in the next episode. And NORAD never heard anything about the other hijacked aircraft headed towards Washington, D.C., United 93. So they never heard anything about that. And yet later, they would try to claim to the 9/11 Commission, and they claimed in the media, that United 93 would have never made its target because we were going to take it down. That's not true. United 93 had already crashed because of the brave civilians on board that took control of that plane or tried to take control of that plane. If that had not happened, United 93 would have made its target, whatever that target was supposed to be that day. And we're going to talk about the hijacking in the next episode. So we will see you all actually next week, not next week this time. We're going to get this all done and off to you all. But I hope you enjoyed this first episode about United 93. I hope we were able to shed some light on this because honestly it shed a lot of light for me on our governments.
I apologize if it was a bit ranty. We're very tired of just life right now. And also our government for several different reasons, including 93. Like I said, I didn't know most of what you told me because really? I stayed away from it. I didn't read the explanation of any conspiracy theory or anything like that. I just stuck to the conspiracy theory. I was going to draw my own opinions on it and all the rest of it, and then work on the why that's ridiculous or why that might kind of make sense after we talked a little bit more about it. So.
Yeah. Next week we'll talk about, there was over 37 calls made, like I said earlier in this episode. We're going to talk about those phone calls. We're going to talk about the possibility of a fifth plane. And we are going to talk about Marcus's conspiracy theory corner on this episode. I will say, for me, I get a little, and maybe this is like that American patriotism because we were raised in that, right after 9/11, all of that, I do get touchy when it comes to United 93.
Yes.
In the sense of conspiracy theories, but I feel very strongly about the people that were on board United 93 and what they did that day and how many lives they saved.
Yes.
But we will be talking about all of that in the next episode. But yeah, until next week.
Until next week, we'll see you guys later.